is a mind map on the Suez Canal. First of all, we have Egypt.
This is where the Suez Canal is located.
The Khedive links to the fact that the Khedive owned the Suez, but by owning it, he forced bankruptcy upon himself and therefore had to sell it to the British.
Gibraltar, Malta, and later Cyprus were all strategic acquisitions that the British made, which also helped protect the Med side of the Suez Canal.
And then we have Aden, which helped support the Red Sea side of the Suez Canal.
Then we have mercantilism. Basically, this is like the opposite of what the Suez Canal stood for, because the Suez Canal stood for free trade, which we'll come on to later.
Next, we go on to pragmatism, and this linked to the fact that it was in Britain's best interest to buy the canal, as either the French would have controlled it, or it threatened closure due to chaos erupting in Egypt.
And then free trade. The Suez Canal had no tariffs or restrictions on trade, so therefore it supported Adam Smith, which we'll now go on to later.
Ferdinand de Lesseps links to the fact that he built it, whereas it was previously deemed that it was impossible to build, as the sea level imbalance was impossible to cover.
Yeah, the Suez Company shareholders in France loaned a lot of money to the Khedive to try and keep the canal open. Obviously, that didn't work very well, so therefore the British bought it off the Khedive.
The national debt links to the fact that Britain managed their national debt very well using the central bank. This allowed them to borrow money off the Rothschilds immediately because they had good credit.
Yeah. Adam Smith and his book The Wealth of Nations supported the Suez Canal as it links with free trade and supports no restrictions on trade.
Next we go to geopolitics, and this links directly to the French and British sort of rivalry, and the fact that Britain bought the Suez Canal to stop the French having it or stop it closing, which is geopolitical.
Also, with geopolitics, this was initially an economical purchase, but once we purchased it, it became a strategical acquisition.
Next we have China, and Suez was a shorter route rather than the Cape of Good Hope to connect to our Chinese Empire.
As well as India, but India was obviously... We had a foothold in India before we had a foothold in China, but after we made our foothold in China, this became a very useful shorter route than going around the Cape.
Okay, that concludes our presentation on the Suez Canal.